Okay, our next speaker is Scott Adams. Scott lives with his wife and 6 kids on a farm in Lawson, Missouri. He's the proud parent of not 1, but 3 special needs children. Gave him so that gave him the inspiration basically to start up his company, which is called the Special Needs Planning Center. He does planning for families with special needs kids. He's a chartered financial consultant and works with families on financial and estate planning. Please welcome Scott Adams.
No pictures today. My phone doesn't hook up to their system, so that's what I get for traveling light. How are you all this afternoon? You guys eating the sugar, sitting here ready for the nap? That's awesome. I love this time to present. I should have, like early morning, usually, you're kind of groggy, so I kind of get through it. Not too many critiques come back. It's awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming to this. You take time out to learn about what is best for your children, and that is a strong. Says a lot about you guys taking this out, and I just want to say thank you, because I know for our kids, our whole lives have been dedicated now. We actually adopted our 3 children with special needs, and we live on a farm. It's actually a ranch, because we do hypnotherapy. Anybody know why we do that? We do walk with therapy, and we have lots of speech pathologists. Anybody have ISTs in your life? Speech pathologist, gastrologist, cardiologist, ISTs. We have funded a lot of second homes, I think, in large countries. And one of the things I did hear on the question of how do you fund this, I know some of the states have things called technology assistance waivers. Is anybody here from Kansas? Through your local CDDO, if you contact them and ask about the technology assistance waiver, they will provide different types of communication devices. Each state is required to have that. They're just called different things to make it really difficult on parents. But each state has that, and they can either work in conjunction with the school district or it's separate. So let me get started. I've got like 6 hours. Isn't that what they told me today? I've got like 20 minutes to try to get you guys caught back up. How many of you have done legal work? This is an exciting topic. When we talk about motivational speaking, let's talk about dying and death. Woo, yay. How many of you have done a will, a simple will, trust? Anybody? That's fantastic. The person next to you didn't raise your hand, hit them, okay? How many of you know you need something? Come on, raise your hand. It's not something we don't, it's like you wake up in the morning and go, man, I might hit by a bus. Woo, I better get something done today, right? That's kind of a morbid way to live. But in reality, our firm's been doing this for 12 years, and we have families all over the world. We get phone calls when mom and dad don't do anything. And as my wife, she actually attended KU and got her doctorate here in autism, behavior disorders. And so our whole world has been, our barbecues and things look really different. You feel free to come out, you'll fit right in, just stay out of the bull pasture and don't go down the creek, and we're good. That's kind of our rules in the place, okay? But what we found is that a lot of these things are language barriers, or who do we trust? When we're talking about this, at some point we have to trust people. Do you agree? Our doctors, the people, the schools. Sometimes we make mistakes with that, and we will try to work through that. This gentleman was very gracious in trying to get my presentation up. But with that, there's some language skills that you have to have in order to advocate for your child. Would you agree? When you first get a diagnosis, what do you go through? Well, there's a lot of emotional stuff. I know I'm a guy, so we don't talk a lot about that. It's kind of forbidden, okay? It's just one of those guy rules. But there's a language set, right? You're learning languages and acronyms and things that we had no idea that exist out there. We spent a lot of time in Children's Mercy. I've got initials that I don't have any idea what meant when we first got our diagnosis, right? And I'm talking to ISTs, neurologists, cardiologists. First off, I'm panicked because I had no idea we were walking into this for 2 of ours. One, we didn't have special needs. And secondly, I'm scared to death. Every time you bring up a new topic, I'm thinking, is it terminal? How do you cure it? What do we do? I'm a fix-it guy, right? That's what we do. So in order to talk to these cardiologists, these people, I had to speak what? Cardiology, right? So I had to learn all about cardiology. And then when we had the neurologist, I still don't speak Latin. I'm more, wow. You know, my wife takes over at that point and she talks to the neurologist, right? The same thing happens when we do long-term planning for our children. I usually walk and present, so I apologize. I feel like I put that behind a box. The idea behind some of the simple things that you have to understand as we do long-term planning for our kids. Number one, Social Security. And is anybody here from a foreign country? Is everybody here from the States or United States or foreign countries? I apologize. Those are all different. We were just talking to India and some other places, so please disregard some of this. But in regards to Social Security, at age 18 in the United States, what does your child become? Legal adult. It has nothing to do with part of my, I get some grace with the kids we have. It doesn't have to do with functioning, it doesn't have with speech, it doesn't have anything else. It's purely what? Date of birth. Okay, so when they become 18, what happens? They're emancipated. Now think about that term, emancipated. Okay, that means mom and dad have no longer access to medical, financial, school, anything. They get to make all their own decisions. Are you tracking with me here? Okay. So we'll get school districts to call and say, this young man's in an IEP, he just said mom, dad can't come in. Does anybody have a bad day with your kids, or is it just me? So I get that look in the morning from Austin, he's our older, she's 17, and I know this is going to be a rough go. So if we happen to have an IEP that day, and they walk in, and they ask Austin, is it all right if your father attends the IEP with you? And he gives me the look. You're like, oh, that's not good. No, dad can't come. And he just grins. It's just, he's in control. It's great. But at that point, can I attend that IEP meeting? No, you can't. So at age 18, you're going to have to do something. And that is, I just want to touch on that. You're either going to need to look at guardianship, which is not right for everyone. It is intrusive, it is invasive, it is all-consuming, but it allows you to make decisions for the individual and protect them. Okay? I believe that most parents have their children's best interests at heart. Or you have to do something called the durable power of attorney. Does anybody remember that awful deal down in Florida with Terry Schiavo that was on the news? And what didn't she have? Just a piece of paper that the state of Florida recognized that says, I have a piece of paper that says, if I'm incapacitated, I want my wife to make medical decisions for me. You have to have that. Being married does not give your spouse authority. Is that case proved? Are you following me on that one? So you have to have something in writing. Now, if my wife and I ever get a date night again, which I'm not sure we do, we probably just talk about the kids. Yeah, you're laughing because you're there. It's that kind of funny laugh. You're like, oh wow, we're kind of in that boat too. But if you both get incapacitated, my brother-in-law is my contingent. Now he's been riding the pro rodeo circuit for about 15 years. What do you do to a sick horse? So I'm very comfortable with that. He will unplug me in a heartbeat. Okay. And when I say that, I joke about it because that's what men do with difficult issues. But whoever you give that authority to, I would not give it to my daughter who adores me and she's super emotional. So to ask her to look dad in the eyes and pull the plug, is that fair? No. So really who you give that authority to, you need to make sure that they're hard-hearted enough. I'm kidding. I'm not picking on my brother-in-law. But he knows where we're coming from, okay? But that authority has to reside somewhere. And the same thing with your children. You have to get that authority to be somewhere. Because up to 18, who gets to make all the decisions? You do, right? Now, how many of you thought about if you came to this conference and didn't make it home? Anybody worry about that? Okay? That keeps people up at night. The number one question that we get, thank you, is what happens if we don't come home? There's a couple documents you have to have. And usually this is a 2-hour workshop, so I'm cramming it in 30 minutes. How's that? The first thing you have to have, it begins with a W, it has 2 L's, live Alabama, what is it? Come on. There you go. See, you even know what it is, right? I'm a recovering analytic, okay? I used to be the guy in dark suits, get on planes, fly over the country. Two primary functions a will does. First primary function is what?
Stay together, stuff.
Stuff. Thank you. Recovering. She's recovering too. We're in the same language. Stuff. How many of you have stuff? All right, you got stuff. The second thing, which is more important than anything else, is who? Children. Where do the children go? If you do not have a will and you die what's called intestate, where do your children go? No.
The court says.
Court says. We're actually in the middle of one right now where the brother was killed in a horrible accident. Sister drove down to Arkansas, picked up the young man who has autism, brought him back to Kansas. What did she just commit? Federal kidnapping. But she's the only living person that the child has. Do you see how tricky that is? The state of Arkansas says we have jurisdiction over this. This child is a resident of Arkansas. You do not have authority to come in and take a citizen of Arkansas and they're minors, so they are going into state custody. Now, Arkansas has been very gracious at this point because they don't want to pay for it, which is part of it. And they said, nope, you can take him. But through that chain, there was a lot of legal bills, okay? How many of you would like your child to go to the state? How many of you are going to go get a will that you don't have one? That's pretty much the way it is. And we get calls monthly, and we're probably super sensitive to it because we see those situations, okay? So the will does two things. It says who gets the kids, right? And who gets the stuff, all right? Now, if you have an adult, how many of you have children that are adults with special needs? Okay. How many of you have adult guardianship? Does anybody? Okay. With adult guardianship, your will continue to pass along the guardianship, okay? So my wife and I will be Austin's guardian until we're gone, okay? And then our document says, once we're gone, I want my daughter to be the next caregiver, the next guardian, okay? That's in my documents. It has to be. She doesn't have to go back to court. You don't have to go refile. You have to do all that stuff. You just have to file the will with the courts, and they will then recognize my daughter as the new guardian. Does that make sense? If you move from state to state, you have to refile your guardianship at the new state. So if you go to California or if you end up in Florida, all you have to do is pay a fee and you refile your guardianship, which is also important to let the next person in line so that the guardian that you have is not in the same state as you. You need to let them know that when something happens, if something happens, that you're going to have to register that in the state that they reside. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, how many of you want to disinherit your kids? Oh, sorry, we had a bad day today. All my children are out right now, okay? I'm looking for, I'm going to adopt another family because I do those lawyers. But in reality, none of us really do, right? To be eligible for Social Security at age 18, you have, I don't have time to go through Social Security. Basically, Social Security provides a subsidy, medical, transportation, job coaching, lots of stuff for our kiddos at age 18, okay? Or prior, depending on income. Right now, we'll focus on age 18. At age 18, when they're emancipated, it's based on their income and their assets, okay? They can make less than $1,010 a month to be eligible, and they have to have less than how much on the federal guidelines? Anybody know? Less than $2,000. Missouri's less than $1,000 for Medicaid, so be careful with the state regs. Each state is different, okay? Now, how many of you think that you could retire comfortably if I put $1,000 in your IRA and told you, ta-da, that's all you can have? Isn't that what the federal government's telling us for our kids? Okay? How you get around that is you can actually use something called a special needs trust. You'll hear it called SNT, it's called lots of things, okay? A special needs trust is really this simple. My son, I'll tell you, there's sort of will and a trust. We live in the country, okay? And this is a public service announcement. How many of you just like dogs? Anybody like dogs? Okay. Stop dropping them off to people in the country. We're good. You don't drop off Fluffy. You drop off like Marmaduke. And I get my cattle and these dogs confused because they're huge. And by the time I get home from work, it has a name, which means it gets to what? That's awesome. See, you're right on board, all right? So let's stop doing that. But I tell you that because one of the things that dogs love is peanut butter. I don't know if it's genetic or just something to annoy us, but they do. So if my wife makes my son 3 or 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and stack his books and we shove him out the back door and we watch, and we're trying to get him down to the front of the drive, it's about a quarter mile, and he's not faster than those 20 dogs you've dropped off. Literally, we have 11 dogs. I'm not kidding you. So if you need one, come see us and hand them off. It's great. But what do you think the chances of his peanut butter and jelly sandwich getting to the end of the driveway is? 0. The dogs are circling the house smelling the peanut butter, right? Okay? So you see everything that he has, the dogs see everything, that's what a will is, okay? When you walk into probate, you go to the courts and say, here's all my stuff. Here's my IRAs, here's my 401ks, life insurance, house stuff, okay? What if I bring my son back in after being licked to death, and we put all the stuff in a backpack, we clasp it, zip it up, and how many of you have a dark sense of humor because you're a parent? Thank you. I actually get along with these groups very well because my sense of humor is kind of darker and darker. Okay? And normal people don't really get it. It's not that much fun. Okay. So with my dark sense of humor, I bring him inside, put him on the backpack, and I shove him back out. Okay. And the dogs, as they drag him down my driveway, can you see what's in the backpack? No. Is there one sandwich or four? I don't know. You really don't know. I did this workshop for a large autism conference, and the young lady was in the front row with Asperger's, and she said there were 7 books, and once we agreed with that, we got to proceed with the rest of the conference. So from that point forward, we had an agreement that I would tell everyone that there are 7 books in the backpack, and I have kept my end of the bargain. But the idea behind that is that backpack is a trust, okay? You can't see in it. You don't know if there's 7 books, 1 book. I don't know if there's $10,000 or $10 million. It goes from trustee A to trustee B, okay? It's called trustee to trustee transfer. It avoids probate. The state doesn't get involved. They don't try to seize assets. They don't kick them off Social Security. They don't take them off Medicaid. They don't take away their housing, their transportation, their job coach. How many of you think that sounds kind of important? Okay. Now, with that said, these trusts can be used. I get to the next question, well, what can it do? In New York, we actually have had offices in New York, Las Vegas, Dallas, Kansas City. We just went through another merger. But there's a great gal in New York. She's 35. Is 35 young for everybody here? If not, there's the door, because I think 35 is really young. I'm not sure when that happened, except my son said I was really old this morning. Maybe that's what's affected me. But this trust pays for her and her care attendant to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, have lunch, and then take her home every day, right? What do? We exercised, she engaged. It's kind of like Cheers. That's kind of dating me. Remember that show when Norm walked in the bar? What's shaking? You know, what's not? But everybody knew Norm. When she walks into the Met, how many people do you think know her? Everybody knows her. How much is that worth to you? Priceless. She's engaging. She's part of a community, and the entire staff there looks out for her. Okay. She also goes to evening events. I don't know if you've been to Guggenheim. I spent a lot of time in New York in my past life. The Guggenheim or Med or some of the other ones, they have these dinners, and she loves to go to them because she used to go with Mom. Now, ladies, my girls are getting older, and I'm learning. I'm a little slow. But if you go to a black tie event, ladies, what do you have to get? Oh, no, it's not just a dress. Keep coming. I don't even know. I just gave my wife the credit card, and I'm like, I don't even want to know. But for her, she also gets her hair done, her nails done. There's a car that comes together. Now, who else needs all that done? Her care attendant, right? So who pays for that? Trust. You see how that works? We have master's level special education students lined up all day long to be her care attendant. Why? Because you get to keep the dress, you get to keep the stuff, and you get to, go to some really cool stuff. And Mom and Dad, when they were alive, set up a trust that said, hey, if you're willing to help me out because we're no longer here, thank you. Thank you for helping us take care of our daughter. Does that make sense? And what's been really cool to watch, she's had 4 attendants. 3 of them come back on holidays and take her to lunch, and they're not paid, and they've built a friendship. Okay? Now, what did we do? How did we do that? It's a blank piece of paper with 2 loving parents that spent some time and said, these are the things we think will help our daughter. Okay? Don't get caught in the legal garbage language. Okay? There's people paid to understand that, right? What we need are parents who truly spend some time and think about what makes sense. Okay? We have another one. It's a university, and it buys season tickets to the baseball games. Because of the statistics and numbers, and they can guess what that diagnosis is that we're working with there. Okay? You can say 1963 World Series, and he can do play-by-play. Pick any game, and his savant skill is baseball. So he can. Now, if you ask him, you're there for a couple of hours, so just buckle up, and because you can't leave till the game's over. Okay? Whew, learned that one. That and karaoke machines and roller coasters. Ooh, wow. Okay. Right? So with the trust, what we ask parents is you have to be creative. What do you want to use it for? How does it improve the quality of life of the child? But right now, a couple $100s a month in a child's life that's living independently or living in a residential or working some or doing whatever level they're able to do can make an enormous difference. It's the difference of going to Applebee's on Wednesday nights or going bowling. We have a group of guys that we know, there are 4 of them, and they go for beer and bowling every Friday night, right? How much is it worth to be able to support that with friends? You can't do it without some subsidies. In the Midwest, typically on a monthly basis, if they're just on Social Security, does anybody know what they get in spending cash per month? How much?
$435 if you're living with your parents.
If you're living with your parents. What if you're living at a supported place?
It's another $200.
You get $70 because they take all the rest of it to pay the facility. Some of them are $35. Now, if I put $35 in your wallet or your purse, how long are you going to make it? And there's a Taco Bell across the street, and that's about it, okay? I parked in there, and that was a big bump. I was in a little bit of a hurry, and wow, that almost got everyone. That was great. And all the doors on the entire side of the hospital are locked, so I got my exercises on. That was great. Do you see what I'm saying, though, with the trust? You have to put some thought into it. And then the question I get also is, what can you put in it? Anything. Farm ground, rentals, IRAs, life insurance, whatever you have. If you want your child to live in the home when you're gone, does anybody think that might be a good idea? With some supports? That can be structured. Who would own the house? The trust. The rent from a caregiver or someone would be paid into the trust and provide support. And at that point, the child can live there for the rest of their natural life. So we don't have any major disruptions. And they're used to that, and in some cases, that's a good thing, okay? And then at the end of life, we have donated those houses to the not-for-profits that have helped to care for our children in many cases. So you say, hey, you take care of my child, you can have this home turned into a group home. We have 4 ladies there and a staff member. And then when my child passes, you can have the home to help other families to go through this process. I'm not saying you have to, but it's only limited by your imagination, okay? Are you making sense there? Now, the last thing is there are some taxations and trusts. It's my background, you know I have to get to taxes. It's actually after April, so nobody invites me for cocktail parties. I don't understand. You know, about April 15th, I'm really popular. And then April 16th, nobody calls, and I feel hurt. But within the trust, how many of you have 401ks, IRAs, something like that work? So when you put money in, it's not taxed, right? When it grows or shrinks, but hopefully it grows, right? It's tax deferred, and then when you pull it out, how's it taxed? Current income rate, right? Which we feel is going to increase. You can't have $17 trillion of debt and not increase taxes. Trusts operate very similarly, but after the first $11,300 of income, you are immediately into a 42% tax bracket. 42. Under Reagan, anybody remember Reagan? Now I'm really dating myself. It was 72%. Okay? That's a big difference. So if you have multiple children, it makes sense to do some planning. Like our 401ks, IRAs, they go to our younger kids. Okay? My Roths, my rentals, our cattle, our operation ranches, that type of stuff, which is tax efficient, is going into our 3 special needs trusts. So there needs to be some real thought put into what bucket do they go in, why does it go in there, then how's it taxed. Now these buckets are not funded until you're gone. So the way we have it is my wife and I have a trust each, called AB Trust. And then we have 6 trusts set up underneath. We have 3 special needs trusts and we have 3 loving trusts, okay? None of those trusts are funded until both my wife and I pass. I'm a control freak, I'm going to control it, it's my stuff, and my wife and I are going to spend it if we want to, right? But when we're gone, it goes into these trusts. Special needs trusts are irrevocable, which means it's not the child's assets. You see how that works now? The child cannot go to the trustee and say, I want a new car. The trustee says, tough. Now if the trustee wants to buy a new car, he can or she can, okay? But the individual cannot compel the trustee to make distributions. It's called constructive receipt. I won't get too deep into it, but basically the individual cannot force money out, so they don't have control. So Social Security and Medicaid say that's not their asset. That's the way the special needs trusts work, okay? Does that make sense how that works? How much do you put in? It's just like the ladies up here talking, it depends on your child. It depends on the needs, it depends on what you're looking at, it depends on how much familial support you have, it depends on your network. We have some that need a lot of stuff, and that's a higher funding number. And we have some where all the family members are fighting over who's going to take care of them. So that's, we have a great network surrounding that child. So I would say, we start out in the Midwest. The coast numbers are different, but here in the Midwest, I would say 250 is kind of the minimum, and up to $1 million, $1.5 million would be the maximum. On the coast, where things are much more expensive, we start at about 600, 700, and then we look at up to $2.5 million, depending on what's necessary or needed or what the state's providing. Again, those are very rough ball estimates, okay? And I don't want you to get hung up on that part. You can buy insurance through work or your 401k, hopefully it'll be worth a lot when you retire, and your home will be paid off. You would be surprised as you go through this process when you get to 60 or 70 how much your stuff is really worth. We're not huge insurance advocates. They have its place, but generally speaking, your assets are going to be enough, especially if you're going to have them reside in the home. That's a large asset and it can be used as an income stream to fund the trust. Okay? Last thing that I want to talk about, and I don't want to go over time. How many of your children have quirks? Okay? One of the things that we have found when someone walks into our kids' lives when we're gone and they're going to take over is you haven't talked to them about the quirks. They have no, let's take our house. You walk up and we have 6 horses. Why? Because we do hypnotherapy, right? You walk into our house, it looks like Walgreens exploded, right? Okay? Who gets what, where, and why? I don't really know. I messed it up. The kids slept really well last night, honey. Why? Well, I gave them their meds. Well, we changed them last week. Oh. Well, we could write that down when we travel. Okay? But that's another thing we have to communicate. The other thing is, if someone's willing to step in your life, if they're both working, can one of them continue to work with all the therapies and interventions you do? That's an honest discussion. And if they can't, you need to provide compensation. But we suggest you build something called a continuity of care plan. This is basic instruction manual that you go through with the next guardian. If it's a sister, brother, mother, father, grandparent, whoever, you go through this with them and say, these are the things that you can expect to really go through with our kids. It's educated, it's fair. I'm not above bribing them with a steak dinner, okay? But really going through that process, because what we get are, unfortunately, they become guardians. Please don't do that. Please do some type of planning and visiting with that person, okay? The other thing I would also highly recommend is, and don't raise your hand, if you've done this or not, if you have a guardian in mind and they're in a document and you talk to them and they've been gracious enough to bless your life by doing that, how many of them have actually spent the night or the weekend with that guardian? That's a very different way to look at it. I would encourage you to at least go with them and spend a weekend, and then over time, maybe you guys take a break or you're 2 doors down or however that works, okay? But let them start integrating into your children's lives. If you take a neurotypical child and you take away their parents and you put them into a new environment, will they react and act out? How much more is it for a child who doesn't understand what's going on? They don't understand why mom's not here. They don't understand why dad's not here. They will break things. They will damage things. They will flail. They will be upset. Okay? That is not fair to do to your child. In most cases than not, what we see in that instance is they say, man, we didn't sign on for this. They're hurting our other kids or whatever. Okay? We're out. That's not good for anybody. Okay? Because who's their best advocate? You guys, right? But when you're gone, you're gone. You don't get to plug in and hit a reset button like a lot of kids do with these computers, right? So I would ask you is to go through a thoughtful process. For those of you in the States, one of the things that we recommend, there's the attorneys that we have usually used across the United States, it's called the Special Needs Alliance. Okay, Special Needs Alliance. If you do a search online, your city will come up with the closest one, and they have attorneys that just do special needs. Do not go to an elder care, do not go to a divorce attorney, I want somebody who does 100 or so special needs trusts a year, okay? Because these are highly technical. And out of 10 trusts we see a week, I would say 6 don't work. And you don't know they don't work until what? You're dead. Ta-da, and then we're back and arguing in front of a judge saying, well, the intent of the trust was this. Well, that may, hopefully the judge is on a good day and he or she will open up the case and restructure the document. But that there's no guarantee. We have one out in Western Kansas, got about $4 million locked up in it, and we can't get it out. It was structured wrong. And the child's off benefits because it's actually reading as his asset, but we can't even get to it. The guy who dropped it was a family friend. It's a small town. He's a good man. He just didn't know special needs, okay? These are highly technical documents. We interview, please feel free to contact us. We know a lot of attorneys around the United States that we trust. Chicago, Philadelphia, California, we know a lot of these guys. There's not a lot of these guys and gals out there. Most of them are parents, or they have a loved one. Anybody here from Chicago? No? Wow, that's the first time we've done that. Maybe they lock everybody in Chicago right now. I think that's going on. They probably need them to vote. I'm just kidding. Do you see where I'm headed with that though? Do not just go to any attorney. I do a search every once in a while, look at websites and say how many people do special needs, and there are thousands of attorneys that advertise this, okay? I'm not an attorney, I don't play one on TV, but within about 30 seconds I can tell you if they've ever done one and if they know what they're doing. Most of them who advertise have no idea what they're doing with special needs trusts. We just had one, they spent I think $6,000 on a trust, and it actually had different fonts. And they cut and pasted like 3 different documents and it didn't work. But you don't know that. Just like we talk to doctors, I don't know how the brain works. I have to trust someone. So if you want to, please call us. We're at the Special Needs Planning Center. We're here in Kansas City. We have lots of connections around the country. Some international, not too much. We were just valued property in Iraq though. That was probably one of the more interesting ones I've been involved in. We basically came up with a value of 0. Because it's hard to access and no one's going to buy it. But you can contact the Special Needs Planning Center in Kansas City. It's www.dsnpcenter.com. You can call me or Heath Birch, who's one of the other partners there, at 816-741-1100, and we'll help in any way we can. But if you are in an area that we know attorneys, we'll at least get you there and get you there safely. We are a financial planning firm. That's what we do. We only work with families with special needs. So if you run into social security issues or anything like that, please don't hesitate to call us. We work with thousands of families, and we enjoy it. If you want to come to the office, I think we're the only planning firm that has juice boxes and Wii games and video games. And if you break stuff, we're fine with it. So the boxes going off was not a detraction to us at all. Usually you have kids out there screaming at Mario Brothers or something, so it's great. I know I probably went over time, I apologize. Are there any questions? I know this is such an exciting topic.
Will you repeat the number?
It's 816-741-1100. My direct extension is 3. I do travel quite a bit. I probably do about 40 to 60 workshops a year. But I do try to get back to you within 24 hours if I can. If not, I'll push that off to Amanda or Leslie, who's one of the attorneys in the office. We will try to get your questions answered. Also, email is a really good way to get hold of us. Mine is sadams@cacu.com. And if I know what you're looking for, sometimes I just pass it directly off to someone and say, hey, please contact this family. They're looking for this. They're in your area. That's helpful. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question about the guardianship.
Okay.
My husband and I, we live here. I'm not American citizen.
Okay.
If something were to happen to us, I don't have American family, so how would the process be? Like if my daughter were to have to leave the country for someone else to take care of her, or would the person have to become a U.S. citizen to come here to take care of her?
No,
How does international
what
work?
country are we looking at?
Well, I have a couple countries. I have some family in Norway and I have some family in Chile.
Okay. Both of those are fine. The only time we get into trouble is if it's a government that's in chaos. The government will sometimes say, yeah, we're not sure where the child's going. Sudan, some of those. I mean, I've got a good friend, his wife's from Lebanon. So far that's okay, but I can see that being an issue. The parent always has authority. So if you name grandma who lives in Chile, that's your legal responsibility. Now, we have an issue with assets transferring outside the United States. We'll have to do a special type of trust, which means the assets will remain in the United States. You can draw them with a debit card, lots of ways around that. But if you expat the funds, the government's going to take about 50% of it. So make sure you tell grandma not to pull your child's funds out of the States, because they will absolutely hammer them. So we leave it in here, we put it on some type of a platform that they can see internationally, and then you can use debit cards, credit cards, along those lines. And then depending on what country they're in, making sure that the next lineage or the next guardianship is set up. But yes, we're very familiar with that. We've done, we just did 2 down in Brazil. So that's becoming much larger of part of our population, so.
Now, with the child, if they have to leave the country so that they could be accommodated, would they lose their rights in here? Like, would they lose their social security or whatever rights they could have here?
There's some rules and regs on how often they have to revisit the United States, and that, we'll have to take that offline. I promise I'll come back, but they have to come back a certain amount of time, or else they will lose their status and they will lose their social security. But yeah, we have lots of families living in Central America right now because it's less expensive. They're retired there, the kids love it, but they do have to come back for a certain period of time. Yes, ma'am.
We made our wills out before we found out we were going to have a special needs granddaughter, and we also have our son has a special needs son who's autistic, and we don't know if he'll ever be able to hold a job.
Okay.
How would you recommend that we change anything, or what should we do?
We all live in an ideal world, right? Ideally, a Christmas gift would be to buy your son a special needs trust and do his legal work for him. Yay, I'm sure that's what you're looking for Christmas, but it'd be a great gift. Once his trust work is engaged, then you would name his trust work as the beneficiary, not him directly. And part of that planning is to fund the special needs trust through that lineage, through that bloodline, so that it doesn't come outside of the scope, go into probate, and then take them off benefits. So the parents always have to do their legal work first. I kind of make it, remember those old plantation houses, you build the main house and you add the wings? Grandma and grandpa are always going to be the wing, but the son, the parents always have to have the main foundation built. And it has to be a solid foundation, because if you have a wing onto a bad foundation, you're just adding more money to a problem. So making sure that that main foundation with the children is set. So typically what I would do is I would talk to an attorney in trust, ask them if you draft your son's documents, tie your documents in, and it works extremely well. If the son is not able or willing to do that type of planning, we're all different modes of accepting where our children are. Some of us, are saying, no, my child's gonna be fine, it's a phase, whatever. You can set up your own special needs trust inside your document, and I would do that so that any piece that was going to go to your grandson or granddaughter would immediately go to a special needs trust. We don't like more than one of those because you can actually get into trouble if 2 trusts pay for one thing. That gets a little fuzzy, can cause some problems, but at least you would know that that money's not going to take them off. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I love technology.
I actually have 2 questions. My first one was, can you clarify what type of certifications that people who work for your company have? Is everyone financial planners? Are there lawyers and financial planners?
All of us are CFPs. I mean, I've got more initials than I take tests well. I'm one of those geeks. So I've got a lot of them. We're actually working with the American College, which is someone who teaches I actually taught certified financial planning classwork also. But we're working on a chartered special needs advisor. So we're working on this designation across the United States. They'll have to take 15 master's level credits. They'll have to have a certified financial planning first, which is a 2-year, kind of like a CPA. They have to get that. It's a 16-hour exam, so they have to pass that first. And then this would be almost like, for people in law school, it would be like an LLM or a PhD in taxation. So we're pushing that out right now, and we're trying to get it so that people that you talk to or ask questions to would actually have the right answer and not just try to sell something. We like fee-based people.
The other question, and I'm not sure, you probably can't give me an exact number because it depends on what you're having to do when we talk to you guys. But what is a good ballpark figure that we as parents can expect to pay to set up special needs trusts? Because I've heard all different numbers and we don't really know.
It all depends on where you are and what the relationships are. So here in Kansas City, okay, Leslie, we found her 6 years ago. We brought her in on board. We sent her down to, there's a university in Florida that does training for 3 days. It's a great program. But she's 100% special needs. We send her 120 families a year, and we negotiated $1,800 a year for our families. So that would be on the very, very low side. That's your trust, kids' trust. So for us, we do all 6 of our trusts, my wife and I's trust, our durable powers, titling our property, all of it, okay? If you live on the coast, you're not going to find it for $1,800. You're probably going to be in the $35,000 to $4,000 range. But again, it's finding someone who does a lot of it. We also, 40% of our practice is pro bono, so our attorneys do it on a sliding scale. So if you're a single mom that's making $35,000 a year, she will get a trust. That's one of the neat things that I get to see happen in her office is we'll tell her she's paying, and then at the end of the day, there's a paid in full bill that's slipped across the desk. So those are the things that we as a firm do, if that makes sense. So I just getting to know your community. I would contact the parks. I don't like, it used to be called Association for Retired Citizens. We don't use that anymore, but the ARCs are national. They usually keep decent lists, and sometimes they're pretty good at that. I have exceeded time, I apologize. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, welcome to Kansas City.